cheaper than our producer's underage sister, edgier than the stuff shown on late night television, newer than Kim Kardashian's ex. Live from Orlando, it's Crazytrain Radio.
Upcoming Saturday, he's going to be defending his Midwestern Championship against Troy Miller. Got a WWE Hall of Famer, legend in the wrestling business on the phone. HackSaw Jim Duggan, what's going on?
Well, thank you very much, brother. You know, the first thing HackSaw's got to do is give a oh, kind of fires me up, you know.
Hey, it fires a lot of people up over the years, that's for sure. But obviously you're going to be working the Heroes and Legends show out in Fort Wayne, defending your title against Troy Miller, who you beat back in September. What can you tell us about the show?
Well, I tell you, it's going to be just exciting to be part of a show like that. I mean, there's a lot of the young up-and-coming stars, the future stars of them all, the guys you'll see at WWE and TNA. These are the guys that this is a proving ground for them. And then also you got the guys that have been around for quite a while. It's kind of like almost a reunion for us. I mean, Theodore DiBiase, I always said Ted DiBiase may be the greatest technical wrestler in the sport, but he can't fight a lick. I used to beat Theodore up all the time. It'd be great to see Teddy. And, of course, Jake the Snake Roberts is going to be there. There's just going to be a lot of guys there, and it's going to be I'm looking forward to getting there to see everybody. But also I'm looking forward to getting into the ring because out of all those guys, I'm one of the few that's still able to get in the ring and still able to wrestle, and I'm pretty proud of that.
Well, the show that we're talking about, he's going to be a Heroes and Legends show out at the Lutheran Health Sports Center out on the Ice Way in Fort Wayne, Indiana. They actually got a fan fest going on at 10 a.m. Then the bell time for the match he's talking about is at 7:30 that night. Some of the people he's mentioned, Demolition, Ron Simmons, Tatanka, Ted DiBiase is going to be there. There's going to be a cast of characters, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of great guys, and of course, and also with the autograph session earlier, I know my flight, I'm kind of I'm committed the night before, so I don't get in till afternoon. I don't start signing autographs, I think, to like 2:30, 3 o'clock. But it's great because it's an opportunity for the fans to get to meet the wrestlers. I know when a WWE event like Wrestlemania coming up, you cannot even get close to the guys. Here in an event like this, you're going to be able to sign autographs, get pictures, ask questions, and it's a great time for the wrestlers also to give back to the fans.
Well, which is great about the independent scene, that's for sure. But speaking of Wrestlemania, because you just brought it up, are you actually going to be going up to New York, New Jersey?
Yeah, they usually bring us up there for WrestleMania, you know, the Hall of Famers, and it's great to be there. And again, that's another opportunity to say hello to a lot of old friends, but it's also a great opportunity to be part of or to actually see where wrestling has come from, you know, the relatively humble beginnings I had breaking in 1979 to the worldwide event that it's become at the Meadowlands with over 90,000 people. I mean, it's what a transformation of a business.
It's definitely mind-blowing, that's for sure. Speaking of
worldwide, I do a lot of I do a lot of golf tournaments, celebrity golf tournaments. I just did one in Orlando with NASCAR people and a lot of NFL guys. And I always joke those NFL guys, I'm like, world champions, you guys been to Japan, Australia? It's unbelievable the reach and the scope of professional wrestling around the world.
Were a lot of those guys actually fans and coming up and talking to you on purpose, or?
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people are wrestling fans. I'm pretty active. I'm a former NFL player. I'm quite active in the union. I give those guys a lot of business. I do a lot of celebrity golf tournaments through the NFL. And, I always like joking. But the wrestling, as we watch wrestling, or excuse me, we watch football, a lot of those guys watch wrestling and love it. And of course, you see a lot of them, make the transition. McMichaels, Lawrence Taylor wanted to do more refrigerator pairing.
And you made the transition yourself, being with the Atlanta Falcons for a time there.
Yeah, well, mine, it was a unique deal because I always thought I'd be a football player. I wasn't actually a wrestling fan growing up. I didn't know too much about wrestling at all until I had my knees surgeries with Atlanta, and I realized my football career was over, and a chance meeting with Fritz von Erich opened the door to me to the, it's been a phenomenal business for me. I just recently, my book just recently came out, HackSaw, the Jim Duggan story, which we'll talk about that title later. I had some other ideas, but the Triumph Books wanted to go with HackSaw, the Jim Duggan story. But it's a more positive look at professional wrestling. People see the movie The Wrestler, and a lot of them assume that we're all like that destitute degenerates, They always want to hear about the drug addicts and the guys that are dying and stuff, and all the divorces and all that. I've been in this business almost 34 years. I've been with my wife for 28 years. I've never been to rehab. I've never had a felony arrest. I pay my taxes. My kids go to college and one to high school. I live a normal life. And I think a lot of people get the misconception that we're all kind of like that Mickey Rourke character. And there's a lot of success stories. My good friend Roddy Piper the same way, Tito Santana. It's all not Scott Hall.
Yeah, exactly. Another positive story, you actually mentioned him earlier, who's going to be up there in Fort Wayne Saturday. He maybe had a rocky start, but is doing great now. Ted DiBiase, another positive influence.
Oh, yeah, Teddy has changed his life and has done great. I think he's an ordained minister now, and he brings a lot of people to see the light. And, Ted's one of my best friends. He inducted me into the Hall of Fame. I'm really looking forward to seeing Teddy again, of course. And Jake Roberts, he was my head usher in my wedding almost 29 years ago.
Yeah, so, there's a lot of, speaking of Jake, man, have you seen and followed the changes he's been making lately?
I see he's doing great there with DDP, and I guess Scott Hall's there.
Yeah.
Of course, the old wrestling joke goes, Jake and Scott look great. DDP's going down the tubes now, though. It's all in good humor. No, that's great. Page is a good guy, and he's going out of his way to help those guys, and that's a positive story. Good to hear positive stories.
Yes, that is true. But speaking of WWE, because you were mentioning about going up for Mania and all, you actually were up there 2 weeks ago for Old School Raw, and you worked with Jack Swagger out with Sarge and Dusty Rhodes. Have you followed that storyline at all, or?
A little bit, yeah. And I told Sarge and Dusty as we're going down to the ring, I said, all you guys got to do is keep an eye on my 2x4. I turn around and give a few hoes and USAs. I turn around and there's Swagger standing with my 2x4. Dusty kind of looks at me like, I don't know.
Well, Dusty's a character in himself, that's for sure.
If they just kept on my 2x4, I might have had a chance with Big Jack. But he's a great athlete. I think somebody needs a 2x4, him and his manager.
How do you feel about Dutch being his manager?
What's that, brother?
How do you feel about Dutch actually being Swagger's manager? Do you think that's doing wonders for him? As to getting him over towards, Del Rio and then back into the main event scene?
Yeah, I think any rub with the company, of course, is huge in our business. Nowadays, it doesn't matter if you win or lose or draw. You get the exposure on the WWE. It's a huge event. And, of course, it's always exciting to be on their show.
Right.
That's Hot Angle Jack's a great talent, man. He's a big, strong kid. I mean, he's got the right look. He's a handsome guy, a lot of white teeth. He's the kind of guy that he's got the look they like to see in a marquee type player at the WWE.
And it don't hurt to have somebody like a Dutch Mantell who can be very vocal in your corner either.
And Dutch Mantell, that's a great break for Dutch. He more than paid his dues, and he can pass on some ring knowledge as Jack also. I think if they spend some time in the car together, Well, that's the only way you get better in any profession is you spend time with people that have been in it longer than you and you learn from them. That's the way I've learned from Bruce and Brody and people like that. And hopefully Dutch will be passing that on to Jack, and down the road Jack will pass that on to the next generation.
Well, do you think that's the biggest problem today, where, like, with WWE, they're on plane to plane, where you and your generation were, like, in Mid-South, were car to car and spent more time together talking about and trying to improve?
It's hard to be critical of the WWE product when they're going to have over 90,000 people at Wrestlemania. You know, I just did a Comic-Con in Lexington, Kentucky this past weekend, and a lot of folks, I mean, the majority of folks came up and said, I miss the old days. That was definitely the golden age of professional wrestling with Junkyard Dog and those type of guys, Hercules Hernandez, Earthquake, Macho Man, Randy Savage. I mean, the characters were, you know, and people grew up with that. So, you know, that's always going to be kind of a special time. But the product today is totally different, but it's still a very, very successful product.
Well, yeah, before we let you go, the one guy I want to ask you about who was truly known as the boss, and I know you got to work with him, Andre the Giant. What can you tell us about Andre?
Well, Andre opened the doors for me. He obviously elevated me from a mid-card guy to a main event guy. He challenged me to come down. And, of course, any giant in the WWE, they're like, Duggan, come here, get your 2x4. You know, from John Studd to Andre to Yokozuna to Umaga, I mean, Earthquake. I mean, they had a big guy. They had me wrestle. Big Show, now even Khali. I've been in the ring with Khali. So, but I went down there and challenged Andre, and as he went to grab me, his thumb actually hit me in the lip. It's a pretty good, well-known clip, and it almost tore my lip off. But blood was cascading down my chest. Andre choked me down to my knees, and as I was just barely going out, I felt around and got my 2x4. I hit the big giant between the eyes. He went down like a giant redwood, and I ended up standing over Andre the Giant, covered in blood, holding my 2x4 up in the air. Oh! I went from a mid-card guy to a main event guy. And of course,
well, Andre was one of those guys who was known to either like you or didn't. Where would you say you fell in that category there?
Well, I think that was a pretty big favor he just did there for me, so I think that kind of says where I got along with Andre. If he didn't like you, he wouldn't do something like that for you.
But yeah, you're not the only person that have told us that. But again, folks,
like anybody,
Saturday. What's that?
Well, also, brother, yeah, let me go ahead and plug my. I just got a smartphone, so I told Piper, I was bragging to Piper. I'm like, Piper, I got like 8,000 followers. He goes, Jim, I got 250,000. I'm like, okay, Piper. But yeah, so
go ahead if you want to throw it out there. Go for it.
Official HackSaw. Let's see. Official HackSaw on Twitter and Official HackSaw Duggan on Facebook. And like I said, this past weekend I was in Lexington. The weekend before I was in Des Moines for a telethon. Next week at Fort Wayne, and WrestleMania coming up. Or I'm in Boston before WrestleMania. So go ahead and check it out.
Yeah, definitely. We will definitely be putting all these shows on our website and Facebook and all that fun stuff. But definitely make sure you check out HackSaw out in Fort Wayne. HeroesandLegendsWrestling.com. He's going to be defending his belt out there against Tyler Maynard, whoever that jabroni is, that young jabroni. Let him get some lessons from the old school guys such as HackSaw. HackSaw, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Give me a hold before we go, though, fellas. Come on, let's hit one.
Oh!
Pretty good holding, guys. I'll be a tough guy.